Guess they'll hire just about anybody these days. Captain Christopher Wade's voice sliced through the Friday night noise at the anchor like a sharp knife. It was deliberate and loud enough for 40 people to hear, the kind of cruel comment that came with a smile. Aaliyah Torres didn't react. She was on her knees, picking up broken glass and spilled beer. 6 or 7 pint glasses lay shattered on the old wooden floor of the bar just outside Naval Base Coronado. Her hands moved steadily, collecting the larger pieces first and placing them in her black tray. The laughter spread from Christopher's table like ripples on water. A few whistles, some muttered comments about being clumsy. The anchor sat just beyond the main gate, close enough to smell the ocean but far enough to pretend the normal rules didn't apply. The wood-paneled walls held decades of Navy history, framed photos of past SEAL teams and plaques honoring operations no one discussed anymore. Ceiling fans turned slowly, pushing around air that smelled of beer, fried food, and something else. Maybe testosterone, maybe judgment. Aaliyah wore a simple uniform, a black polo with the anchor's logo, dark jeans, and non-slip shoes. Her brown hair was pulled into a tight bun. At 5'4", she was easy to overlook in a room full of warriors. Christopher leaned back, arms crossed over a chest that showed hours at the gym. He was 38, built like a linebacker with military short hair and a sharp jawline. His polo displayed the SEAL Trident in real gold thread, the kind you had to earn. He wore it like armor. "I'm serious," Christopher continued, playing to his audience of 4 other SEALs at the table. "Standards must be dropping. Pretty soon they'll let anyone serve us." More laughter. One of his friends, a younger operator with a sunburned nose, slapped the table. Aaliyah's jaw tightened for just a heartbeat, then relaxed. Her gray eyes stayed focused on her work. Pick up glass, place in tray. Repeat. Her breathing came automatically. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds hold. The pattern her father had taught her before she could write her name. Then she saw it. A ring had rolled under Christopher's chair, barely visible in the dim light. Silver, but not cheap. It caught what little light there was and threw back a dull gleam. Aaliyah's hand froze for half a second, just long enough for her pulse to skip. She reached for it, slow and careful. Her fingertips touched the cold metal just as Christopher's boot came down, trapping her hand against the floor. Not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to make a point. "Well, well," Christopher said, leaning forward. "What do we have here?" He lifted his boot, and Aaliyah pulled her hand back. The ring came with it, held between her thumb and finger. She rose to her feet in one smooth motion. That's when Christopher plucked it from her grasp. "Nice prop," he said, holding it up to the light and turning it slowly. The trident gleamed, eagle, anchor, and pistol all forged together. Every SEAL knew that symbol, but this one was different. The weight was right, the detail precise, the wear pattern spoke of years, not weeks. Christopher's smile didn't reach his eyes. "eBay special?" The bar had gone quieter. Not silent. The jukebox still played classic rock and conversations continued at other tables. But there was a bubble of attention now, centered on Aaliyah's outstretched hand and Christopher's mocking grin. "Give it back," Aaliyah said, her voice low and controlled. "Why?" Christopher tilted his head with fake innocence. "Is this yours? Because last I checked, you're serving drinks, not training at Coronado." "It belonged to my father." The words landed like a grenade. Christopher's expression flickered for a moment, then the mask returned. "Funny, my father used to say that too," he paused, before he realized lying about military service is a federal crime. Aaliyah's hand didn't waver. "I'm not lying." "Sure you're not," Christopher said, tossing the ring in the air and catching it. "Tell you what, you want this back, prove it's real, otherwise." He slipped it into his pocket. "Finders keepers." In a corner booth near the front window, a man who'd been nursing the same beer for an hour straightened slightly. Chief Petty Officer Raymond Ramirez, retired, 65 years old, wore a worn leather jacket over a faded SEAL veteran t-shirt. His weathered face turned toward the scene, his eyes narrowing. Aaliyah held Christopher's gaze for 3 full seconds. Then, without a word, she turned and walked toward the back. Her hands were steady, her breathing even. The tray of broken glass didn't rattle. Christopher watched her go, then turned to his friends. "You see that? Probably bought it at a surplus store. People like that make me sick." "Ease up, Wade," a voice said from a nearby booth. It was deeper, older. Commander Grant Hale sat with 2 other officers, all in civilian clothes, but carrying themselves like they were still in uniform. Grant was 52, gray threading through his short hair with a lean runner's build. "The woman's just trying to do her job." "Just calling it like I see it, sir." Christopher's tone had the barest hint of respect. Stolen valor is everywhere these days. Grant said nothing, but as Aaliyah pushed through the kitchen door, she noticed his eyes following her. The kitchen was all stainless steel and harsh lights. The smell of fryer grease hung heavy. Aaliyah dumped the broken glass and moved to a small break room, a closet-sized space with one folding chair and a scratched mirror. She pulled a small cloth from her pocket and unfolded it carefully. Inside sat an identical ring. The real one. The one Christopher had just pocketed was a replica, swapped so smoothly that no one had noticed. Aaliyah cleaned the ring with slow, deliberate strokes. Her thumb traced the tiny inscription on the inner band, letters so small they were almost invisible. R. Tors, Raphael Tors, Ghost One. "Not yet, Dad," she whispered. The door swung open. Sarah Brennan leaned in, 31 years old, wearing the khaki uniform of a Navy lieutenant. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a regulation bun. "You okay?" "Fine." Aaliyah slipped the ring onto a chain around her neck and tucked it under her shirt. "That was Wade, wasn't it? Captain Jerk himself." Sarah stepped fully into the room and let the door close. They'd known each other since high school, back when Aaliyah was a military kid bouncing between bases and Sarah was the daughter of a Marine. "Want me to file a complaint?" "No point," Aaliyah said, standing. "He's not wrong. From where he's sitting, I'm just the help." "You're more than that." "He doesn't know that, and that's the point." Aaliyah checked her reflection, face composed, no trace of anger. "How much longer on those access logs?" Sarah's expression shifted. "Another 48 hours, maybe less. The archive system is ancient, but I'm working on it." "Good," Aaliyah said, "because he's getting nervous. Did you see how fast he grabbed that ring? He recognized it." "You sure?" "Positive, which means he remembers what happened in 2015. And if he remembers, he's worried about who else might." Aaliyah pushed back into the main bar. The crowd had thickened. The noise level had risen. She returned to her section and cleared tables with practiced efficiency. Christopher watched her from his table, his eyes tracking her movements like a predator sizing up prey. Chief Ramirez ordered another beer. When she set it down, his rough voice barely rose above the noise. "That ring real?" Aaliyah met his dark brown eyes. "You tell me, Chief." "Saw one like it once," he said, picking up the beer but not drinking. "Long time ago, man who wore it was the best operator I ever met, serious as a heart attack, never bragged, never had to." He paused. "He had a kid, little girl, used to see them together on base." "That's so." "Yeah," Ramirez finally took a sip. "Funny thing, though, guy disappeared about 10 years back. Mission went bad, they said equipment failure, bad intel, the usual cover story." His eyes locked onto hers. "But some of us knew better." Aaliyah collected empty glasses from his table. "Sometimes equipment does fail." "Sometimes," Ramirez leaned back, "and sometimes coordinates get changed. Extraction points get moved. Good men get left behind." He jerked his chin toward Christopher's table. "You know Wade was the communications officer for Special Ops back then." "I didn't." "Now you do," Ramirez said, returning to his beer. "Watch yourself, kid. Men like that don't like being reminded of their mistakes." The night wore on. Christopher's table ordered another round, then another. His voice got louder with each beer, his jokes crueler. "Hey, Trident girl," he called, waving her over. "Got a question for you." Aaliyah approached, order pad ready. "What can I get you?" "Information." Christopher leaned forward. "If that ring's real, you should know basic SEAL stuff, right? So tell me, what's the hand signal for enemy contact from behind?" The bar went quiet again. This was entertainment now. Aaliyah could walk away, could deflect. Instead, she shifted her weight and brought her left hand up in a smooth motion, fist closed, 2 fingers extended, pointed backward over her shoulder. Textbook perfect. No hesitation. Christopher's smile faltered. "Lucky guess." "Is there anything else, or can I get back to work?" "Yeah, actually." Christopher pulled out the replica ring. "How about you tell me where you really got this? Because I'm thinking we should check with base security, make sure nothing's been stolen recently." "Go ahead," Aaliyah said. "Serial numbers on the inside. Cross-reference it if you want." That stopped him for a moment. Then he laughed. "Please, like they'd have random costume jewelry on file." "Try it and see." The standoff lasted 5 seconds. Then Christopher pocketed the ring. "Get lost, waitress." By 1 in the morning, the bar was nearly empty. Christopher's table was still there. Aaliyah finished her shift with the same steady efficiency. At 2:30, she stepped out into the cool California night. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sarah found something. Archive shows Wade accessed Ghost Team files 3 weeks ago. Same day you started working at the Anchor. Aaliyah read it twice, then deleted it. 3 weeks ago, she'd applied for this job. Christopher Wade had accessed sealed files the same day she walked through the door for the first time. He knew, or suspected, or was checking to make sure his secrets stayed buried. Aaliyah pulled out the real ring. The chain caught the dim light. She held up the Trident and studied it, looking for answers her father hadn't lived to give her. The ring was more than sentiment. It was a key. Embedded in the band was a microchip, technology that shouldn't exist in something made 10 years ago. Technology her father had told her would activate when the time was right. 2 nights ago, something had changed. The ring had grown warm against her skin. When she pulled it out, a tiny LED on the underside was blinking red once every 5 seconds. The chip was waking up. 48 hours, Sarah had said. But according to the diagnostic tool Aaliyah ran, the chip needed 72 hours to fully decrypt, which meant she had to keep Christopher close until she could prove the truth. Her apartment was sparse. A futon, a small table with a laptop, bare walls except for one framed photograph, Raphael Torres in full combat gear standing next to 8-year-old Aaliyah. She was wearing dog tags that were comically oversized. His hand rested on her shoulder. The back of the photo carried his handwriting. If you're reading this, the ring worked. Finish what I started. Love you forever. Ghost 1. She'd found the photo 2 years ago in a safety deposit box, along with the ring and a letter explaining that her father was part of Legacy Operations, a program that trained family members to continue investigations if the primary operator was killed. The letter explained that Ghost Team didn't die from equipment failure. They died because someone changed their extraction coordinates. Someone on the inside. And her father spent his last hour encrypting evidence onto a chip, betting his daughter would be smart and patient enough to finish what he started. Friday morning arrived gray and cold. Aaliyah was back at the Anchor by 10. The manager, Collins, a retired Marine, pulled her aside. Need to talk? Office, now. In his cramped office, he didn't sit. HR called, got a formal complaint, says you've been stealing tips. That's not true. I know, he said. Checked the cameras myself. You've been honest, punctual, never caused trouble until Wade started his campaign. He looked genuinely sorry. But HR doesn't care. They want you to resign voluntarily or I have to fire you. If you resign, your record stays clean. When do they want my answer? End of business today, 5 o'clock. At 7:20, Sarah called. He knows, not everything, but enough. Commander Hale requested your file this morning. When the system flagged it as sealed, he pushed harder. What did he find? Depends on his clearance. If he's got top secret with special access, he'll see the Legacy Operations designation. Either way, he knows you're not just a bartender. Good, Aaliyah said. Good, Aaliyah, if he tells Wade. He won't. Grant Hale was my father's executive officer. They served together for 6 years. If Dad trusted anyone, it was Grant. At 2 in the afternoon, Sarah arrived with a USB drive. Access logs, everything Wade touched for the last month. She leaned in close. Night of March 14, 2015, Christopher Wade was the communications officer for Ghost Team's mission. He received their distress call. But when I cross-referenced with helicopter dispatch logs, the coordinates Wade gave to the pilots were 4 miles off from what Ghost Team sent. Proof. Audio recordings. You can hear your father calling in the extraction, giving coordinates. Then Wade's voice relaying different numbers. It's clear as day. At 5 o'clock, Collins handed Aaliyah a resignation form. She signed it without argument. I'll work tonight's shift, she said. One last night. The evening crowd started arriving at 7:30. SEALs, mostly. They were here for Christopher's party, his unofficial goodbye before transferring to Virginia. Christopher arrived at 7:45 with 6 other SEALs. They took the largest table in the center. At 7:55, Commander Grant Hale walked in. He took a booth near the back, alone, waiting. The bar was packed, 50 people, maybe more. At 8:10, Christopher stood and tapped his glass. The bar quieted. Wanted to say a few words before I head east, Christopher said. Been here at Coronado for 6 years, best posting of my career. He raised his glass. To the Brotherhood. Hooya, the response was immediate and loud. Then his expression shifted. But tonight's also about integrity, about protecting what the Trident means. His eyes found Aaliyah. Because lately I've seen people disrespecting that symbol, wearing fake rings, making false claims. The bar went uncomfortable quiet. There's a woman working here, Christopher pointed at Aaliyah. Claims her father was a SEAL, claims she has a real Trident ring, but I've done my homework. She's lying, she's a waitress with delusions. Aaliyah stood perfectly still. So here's my challenge, Christopher's voice rose. Show me proof or admit you're fake. Grant Hale started to stand, but Aaliyah caught his eye and shook her head slightly. Not yet. You want proof? Aaliyah's voice cut through the silence. Christopher turned. Yeah, I want proof, real proof. Aaliyah set down her tray and walked toward him. The crowd parted. She stopped 3 feet away. You said check the records. She pulled the ring out, let it dangle from its chain. So let's check them. Christopher laughed. That's a prop. Then you won't mind if I activate it. Aaliyah lifted her left sleeve, revealing a small bandage on her wrist. She peeled it off. Underneath was a small rectangular scar. She removed the ring from its chain and rotated it 3 times in a specific pattern. Then she pressed the Trident directly against the scar. For a moment, nothing. Then a small blue glow came from beneath her skin, not bright, just visible. The projector on the ceiling hummed to life. Text appeared on the screen. ENCRYPTED log. Ghost Team Final Transmission. Date 20150314. Coordinates transmitted 34, 7,821 degrees N, 69, 1,452 degrees E. Coordinates received by aviation 34, 7,124 degrees N, 69, 2,187 degrees E. Discrepancy 4.3 miles. Source of alteration: Captain C. Wade, COMMUNICATONS liaison. The bar erupted in gasps. Christopher's face went pale. That's fake, that's got to be fake. Is it? Grant Hale was standing now, moving toward the center. Because I recognize that format, Captain. I was the executive officer for Ghost Team. That's authentic. Aaliyah plugged in the USB drive Sarah had given her and pressed play. Static, then a voice. Overwatch, this is Ghost One. Mission complete. Requesting immediate extraction. Coordinates as follows: 34.7821 north, 69.1452 east. Raphael Torres, Aaliyah's father, alive in that recording. Another voice, younger. Ghost One Overwatch copies, stand by. A pause, then the same young voice. Aviation Overwatch, emergency extraction requested. Coordinates: 34.7124 north, 69.2187 east. Different numbers, clearly different. The recording ended. The bar was absolutely silent. That second voice, Grant said. That's you, Wade. Christopher said nothing. Aaliyah played another section. Her father's voice more urgent. Overwatch, Ghost One, where is aviation? Hostiles within 500 meters. We need extraction now. Aviation is en route to your position. ETA 15 minutes. Negative, they're not at our coordinates. We're at 34.7821 north, 69.1452 east. The transmission cut off. Grant looked like he might be sick. You heard him. He told you the coordinates were wrong and you did nothing. I didn't. Christopher stopped, realizing he was admitting guilt. Aaliyah pressed the ring to her wrist again. New text appeared, then audio played. A phone conversation. Christopher's voice, younger. Sir, I don't understand. Why are we changing their coordinates? An older voice, full of authority. Because Torres is onto us, Captain. He's been asking questions about the supply contracts. If he comes back, he connects the dots and we all go to prison. But sir, this is murder. This is survival. You relay the coordinates I gave you. Aviation goes to the wrong spot. Ghost Team gets overrun. Tragic accident. You do this and your career is golden. Refuse and you'll face court-martial for the procurement fraud you're already part of. Silence, then Christopher. Who is this? A chuckle. You already know. You've been taking my money for 6 months. Earn it. The recording ended. The bar exploded, not with sound but movement. Seals surging toward Christopher. Grant stepped between them. Stand down. This is not how we handle this. The crowd backed off reluctantly. That recording is fake, Christopher said desperately. The metadata checks out, Aaliyah said. Timestamps, encryption signatures, chain of custody. My father knew he was being set up. He recorded everything. Who was giving the orders? Grant demanded. The voice on that recording. Christopher's face crumbled. Major Richard Cross, he was in charge of procurement, running a fraud scheme, selling equipment to contractors, buying cheap replacements, pocketing the difference. Torres found discrepancies, started asking questions. Cross needed him gone. And you helped him, Grant said with disgust. I didn't have a choice. Cross had evidence I'd taken bribes. He owned me. You had a choice, Aaliyah said quietly. You chose your career over 8 lives. You chose money over brothers. You chose to let my father die. Christopher looked at her. I'm sorry, I've lived with this every day. Don't, Grant cut him off. Don't you dare. He pulled out his phone. This is Commander Hale. I need MPs at the anchor immediately. I have a captain in custody pending court-martial. Military police arrived and took Christopher away. As they led him past Aaliyah, he stopped. For what it's worth, your father was the best of us. He was, Aaliyah said, and now everyone will know that. Outside, Grant turned to Aaliyah. Legacy operations. Your father recruited you before he died. Not exactly. He left instructions, trained me without me realizing it, left clues I wouldn't understand until I was ready. She looked at the ring. I've spent 10 years preparing for this. N. Cross. Retired, lives in La Jala. I've been watching him for 3 months. Grant made a call. Within the hour, NCIS had Cross in custody. Your father was my mentor, Grant said. When he died, I knew something was wrong, but I had no proof. He left everything. Recordings, documents, financial records, enough to convict a dozen people. What will you do now? I want my father's name cleared. I want the record to show Ghost Team died because of corruption, not incompetence. You'll get that, I promise. Grant extended his hand. Your father would be proud. As Aaliyah drove away, her phone buzzed. Unknown number, Ghost 7. Tower 4 sends regards. Your father's last target is still active. A file downloaded automatically. Satellite images, coordinates, and a name. Senator Patricia Vance, Defense Appropriations Committee. Aaliyah typed back, who is this? The response, a friend of your father's, someone who's been watching. The coordinates lead to evidence Vance buried 15 years ago, but you'll need to move fast. She knows Wade was arrested. She's already covering her tracks. How much time do I have? 72 hours, maybe less. Aaliyah shifted into drive because this wasn't over. Ghost One's daughter had more work to finish. Her phone buzzed one more time, a voicemail from Chief Ramirez. Miss Torres wanted you to know word's spreading. Your father's being remembered the way he deserves. As a hero who died trying to stop corruption. He left you his dog tags, been keeping them safe. Stop by tomorrow. Aaliyah drove on, the ring warm against her skin. Somewhere ahead in the fog, the next target waited.